feel like this is a really lean audience. We have lunch right after this, and probably a lot of you are already thinking about lunch, isn't it? So the topic that we're going to talk about today is value of real-time data, and let's do a real-time analysis right now. How many of you are thinking about lunch or just want to this session to end and just go out for lunch? Show of hands. Oh, very few.
You're able to hear?
Okay.
Hear?
So, in spite of that, what we'll try and do is keep our, questions very interesting, answers very interesting, so that they are sweet and savory and people don't really miss food, right? There was an introduction, but I feel like people didn't really get who's who. So why don't we start with that? We'll start from here. Why don't you tell us who you are? What's your role in your current organization, and a one-liner intro about your company? You can start from here.
Hey, hi, I'm Gautam. So I run a firm called HireHappi. We are primarily into big data and analytics recruitment consulting. So we help companies find big data and analytics talent. And that's what we do. Our clientele is mostly, product companies and analytics services companies, to name a few. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vipin Rustagi. I am Chief Information Officer at Duroflex Group, and I handle all IT and digital projects in Duroflex.
Yeah. Ankush, Sabharwal, founder and CEO of CoRover.ai. We are into conversational AI platform. Yeah, I hustle across various functions. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Rupesh Shetty. I head the data analytics business at Niveus Solutions. We are a premier Google Cloud partner, and our team of practitioners help realize the data analytics use cases for our clients, mainly enterprises and digital natives.
Hi, I'm Sarabjot Singh. I'm the co-founder and chief data scientist at Tatras Data. We essentially help our clients that are primarily startups in the US building their intellectual property in machine learning.
Hi, my name is Vinay Kumar, and I'm the CEO and founder for Arya.ai. We are an vertical AI PaaS specific to BFSI industry. So we want to build an AI platform that is specific to banks, financial services, and insurance to expedite rollout of responsible and auditable AI. That's about myself.
Thank you, everyone. So let's get the conversation started. I am getting a coffee with Karan vibes, but minus the rapid fire and nepotism talk. So anyway, so the first question that I have for the entire panel is that economists recently made this quote, and it's the buzz statement everywhere, that data is the new oil, right? What do you think led to this comparison, one? And second, how, like oil is considered to be how you look at economic growth of countries, how do you think data can drive economic growth for businesses? Whoever would like to get started.
So I will go first on that. So basically for a company which is in consumer goods and a company like Duroflex, which is majorly into D2C business, where we are directly engaging with consumer. And just to give a background, Duroflex is into home furnishing and mattress, predominantly into mattress business, but then into accessories like pillows and all, and furniture also. And in the group, there are two companies, Duroflex and Sleepyhead. Sleepyhead is a pure digital-only brand established in the last 5 years, and Duroflex, the D2C business, is majorly established in the last 2 to 3 years. So it is a traditional business, 52-year-old business, and I was just setting a background so that I can give how it relates to means how much data is important for the business growth and all. So mattress as a category, we get a consumer every 7 to 10 years. The lifetime value of consumer is not that much repeatable. So the engagement, it is not like that you sell a mattress and then you are selling him every 6 months or an year. So once a consumer comes, it is very important to make that conversion, right? It is not, consumer loyalty plays a role, but it is not up to that much extent. So once a consumer comes on our website, there should be good tools which we are using. There are multiple tools in the market like WebEngage, MoEngage and all that. We have to make sure that we are making real-time interactions with consumers and making and converting the consumer in terms of making him to buy the product, right? Whatever right information has to reach, right pricing point has to reach. Then also one view of consumer in terms, because it's a group company, there are different brands which are catering to different life cycle life stages of consumers. We need to have a very robust CRM, and at any point of time, if consumer is visiting us, then we need to exactly know what historical sale he has made, and then there are Markov's model and all that, which can exactly predict, right? If consumer has taken action A, B, C, D, so we can build ML programs to exactly predict with a quite decent probability that the E will happen, right? And we need to take action accordingly. On the back end also, in the manufacturing setup, there are data simulations, digital factory that can be created, right? Wherein we are trying to do a full simulation so that the person who is doing the foam production at that moment of time, he is exactly able to fine tune the parameters to get a very good quality foam and as well as the productivity. So in all, I will say data is omnipresent, and it is utmost important right now for every company to master their own set of data, because it is a competitive edge. It is no more a good to have thing. It needs to, we need to act on the data. We need to ensure that we are able to engage. We know our consumer. We are able to convert consumer loyalty, which brands were enjoying earlier. Nowadays, that much loyalty is not that. You have to make sure that you pamper your consumer. So data is a big enabler in that.
Rightly so.
Yeah, I can take it. Yeah, so I think commonly saying phrase now that data is the next oil. So was data not the oil earlier? I think it was. But if you see the Indian context and the emerging markets, we in India and few other countries like China, Brazil, Philippines, we did staff augmentation for developed countries, right? We build the products for the developed countries, and those countries have generated a lot of data, and we could not leverage the data, but we just got probably a lot of export revenue from IT, but we did not generate data. Now, knowingly or unknowingly, while we just live, we are generating a lot of data. Even companies are generating a lot of data. And with data sovereignty, GDPR and data protection bill, the data which is originated in, say, country A would remain in country, right? So that means we would be able to generate data as economy is developing, and would be also be able to use the data, and direct benefit would be the current country of origin. So now, see the data flywheel. The emerging economies, when they grow, they produce data. And when we get a lot of data, the data gives birth to new industries, new products, new processes. And it generates more data and more economy development and cycle repeats. And I think now, again, kudos to Indian government, and I think a lot of authorities and forums are being made which are generating data and also making the data accessible, so that the data can be accessed and new products and processes can be made. But yeah, so data is definitely the new oil, and I hope the data protection bill in India gets converted into law, so that now I think a lot of companies are insisting the data should remain in India, so that we can really start using this as oil and not just getting it exported to other countries to just get it leveraged, and they take the benefit and not we who are the massive producer of data. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would agree. Data is the new oil. There are many quotes around this, and I believe they all say the one thing, right? So they are both valuable. Right? I mean, oil is valuable, data is valuable, but the key thing here is that you need to refine it, right? And that is what everybody says, right? So unless you refine the data, it doesn't become valuable, right? And we are seeing a lot of enterprises, companies having a wealth of information, right? Stored about their customers, products, but that is in raw form, right? So it needs to be kind of refined, analyzed, and then you kind of get the value of it, right? So that in that way, it kind of relates to that phrase. Also, the other analogy would be it's like oil kind of powers a lot of engines, right? So we feel data powers a lot of businesses, right? And everybody, if you see in the industry, is talking about how can data be the backbone and the key differentiator for my business, right? So those are the two analogies that I kind of keep in mind, right, when somebody talks about data is the new oil. I would completely agree to that.
So, kind of handing on to it, right? In HR field, the data you have is really valuable, but performing analytics on top of it is an ethical issue because you have all kinds of data in the HR field, and it's more kind of a forbidden oil that you cannot use because you have everything about employee. So specifically in the HR field, that is a forbidden oil. But drawing a parallel for the casino industries that we work for is that real-time data is the essence of their business. Because if you see someone walking into your casino, you want them to stay on your casino floor as much as possible. So all the loyalty cards that you have is essentially the perk that they are giving to purchase your data, so that your movement across the casino floor and across the hotel is monitored. So when you are actually monitoring the person, as they are buying drinks or as they are playing slots or anything, right? In that case, you can send them customized offers, provided you are omni-channelly present. So you can send them customized offers for, new buy-in, or you can send them customized offer for F&B based on the current location of the casino they are in. So if you look at it, that is a food and fodder for the casino industry. And that's why I believe, the value of data is increasing every day. And I don't think in the near future, it's going to, ever come down, or the growth is going to slow down.
Making gambling more addictive than it already was.
So I guess a lot of the panelists have already talked about the comparison between data and oil. But one thing that I was thinking about was the fact that, as new techniques come out in terms of oil exploration as well, we all heard about fracking. And, if fracking had been discovered before the invasion of Iraq, it probably wouldn't have happened, right? And so in some ways, if we look at what is happening with data as well, one kind of odd comparison is the fact that the kind of analysis we are doing of the data and the ways we are collecting data is also under threat with GDPR. So maybe GDPR is the equivalent of the environmental factors that exist around oil that are also have comparables with data. But I think the important thing here is the fact that data has been sitting latent in a lot of businesses. Even back in the early 1990s, when I got involved in machine learning, one of the things that companies had been doing was collecting data. But they weren't using it in any way that was going to help them optimize their processes. And whether it was, manufacturing businesses, we worked with a hard disk manufacturing company where one day their production systems went wrong, right? And as a result, they went from a very low error in their hard disks that they were manufacturing to an 80%. And they had no clue why that was happening. And so, but they had data. So they came to us with the data and said, can you unlock that for us and tell us what went wrong? And then from the real-time aspects, now that we have the technologies, if we see things happening, we can stop them at that point, right? And that's why I think whether it is our interactions with customers today, whether it is the manufacturing processes that we are running that are expensive manufacturing processes that would lead to a lot of lost revenue if they go wrong, and scrappage, we can protect ourselves from that as businesses, right? And leverage data. And I think that is the key, really, at this point.
So essentially how you use this as a fuel to really race at the top.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I can talk about what's happening in BFSI industries, right? What's happening in the last 2 years is process revolution. As in before COVID and during COVID, we have seen the processes being transformed pretty much instantly or drastically. What that is creating is, it is capturing a lot of data during the process. It is generating massive amounts of data now. So now what's the next differentiation, right? So every bank, every insurer has similar processes. And everybody wants to go inclusive. They want to go to tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns, tier 4 towns. That cannot happen without having the intelligence layer. That is where you bring in the AI, automation, analytics, fraud. There are a bunch of things that you have to do to achieve that, right? And the base for all of that is the data. How are you going to monetize the data will define whether you are going to be the big guy in the next 5 years or big guy in the next 30 years. Because that extreme personalization or extreme customer experience, right? That is the biggest differentiator for most of the BFSI products today. I buy an insurance policy because I'll get an instant policy assurance, or I'll go to, let's say, a bank and open an account because I don't need to go to bank. I can do that online. So these are biggest product pitches, right? To achieve that, I think we have to, one, start collecting the data and start utilizing the data. And whatever the economic goals that we have today for 2030, 2050 can only be achievable by monetizing this data that we have created today.
Got it. So data is more like an enabler, just like your fuel is, and then really how you use it, enable yourself to move from one place to another.
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
use cases could be different, right? So Ankush, this question's specifically for you because you come from this domain. So your company builds conversational chatbots, right? And we know that consumer these days are everywhere. This is, someone in my previous panel was saying this is age of consumers or consumerism, right? And you have more data about your consumers. You also have more touch points to reach them. You have devices, laptops, everywhere you can reach them, right? But what comes along with this opportunity is also a threat, that how do you deal with such sensitive information? And we've seen companies break legacy, that they've built over years with just one data breach that happens. So how do you advise your customers to think about sensitive data and what kind of measures should really be in a place? I know there are compliances, of course, like GDPR that was mentioned earlier. In India also there are some, but what are some of the measures that you advise your customers on?
Thanks for asking this. I think that's the most important topic worldwide in India and even in our company. So today we touched around 1 billion users, 100 crore users in our company, CoRover, right? So now, though our target is to reach 2 billion by 2026, but yes, the main topic is how do we secure the data. And so when we secure the data means we have the data, right? The first is we need to think about how we are collecting, how we are storing, how we are processing. And there's a huge cost involved. And I think the threat can be mitigated and the cost can be minimized when we start classifying the data while organizing well, and also give security parameters to the data. We study about it, and I know we have put that in policies, documents, but how often do we do that when we get any document or data? Do we say what's the risk severity to this content, right? Whether low, medium, or high. So trust me, if you do this, the risk would mitigate a bit because you know which data to be more focused about and protect it. The second is whether this is, what's the sensitivity to this data, internal or external. So these are basic sanity things and easy to do, and we should do that. But other things, right, in the system level, how we can do that, I think very basic, and I can reiterate, very basic is it should be encrypted, not only at rest, right, the data at rest, when we persist the data, it should be encrypted for sure, but while marshalling, when the data transfers, should not just be dependent upon SSLs, we should have mechanism to end-to-end encrypt. And few other factors, not just two-factor authentication, and try to have three-factor authentication, with the biometric and multi-factor. And sometimes we need to do masking. I'm sure we know what's the difference between masking and encryption. So I think both techniques we have to analyze and see what should be done for which data. And also, again, very important about risk assessment. Again, we have the risk registers, but how often we update it, right? So we should foresee the issues. We should identify the risks before we start any engagement or a project, right? So what could be the potential risk? And if this happens, how do we mitigate? Very basic things I'm saying, but when we work with real-time problems, when I say, hey, we are working with so much data and so much problems to solve, and hey, theory part, and these are the process dogmas, and we'll do it later. But trust me, these things are very, very important. And few other aspects like the network security, which is very easy and well-structured and well-thought-through subject, and we should leverage that. And other important aspect is the backup. I know everyone takes the backup, but the frequency can vary, maybe weekly, daily, or real time. But where are we storing the data. I think there is a rule 1, 2, 3. We should have 3 copies of a data. So one should be, say, in cloud, and second can be physical, the third should be off-site. Or if you don't use physical storage, you use to cloud, but it should be in different geolocations. Cutting out the CD or the hard drive and keeping it one place is also I think there are services, the vaults and all that. I think we should also use that. And so these are basic things, whatever I have said. But I think other important aspect is take insurance. We should take cyber security, and there are so many indemnity insurances. Take the insurance. What we can protect is the known things, right? There can be a lot of unknown things, but better to have risk and have the better coverage. That these insurance do not cost much, but they are very helpful tool for yourself, and it will give a lot of confidence also to your clients. Hey, if something happens and this company is backed by the insurance company. I think these few basic things, they help just to have peace in mind, and also actually help us when the crisis happens.
So just taking a hard look at the basics, right? Just taking a hard look at the basics, getting the basics right.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of companies get worked up about compliance and don't really pay a lot of attention to security per se. So both go hand in hand. You have to be compliant, but when you're thinking about your customer data, think about security first and then compliance. It'll just follow if you are secure. Thanks. So the next question I have is for Vijay. Vijay, you did talk about BFSI a bit, and I know that you work with a lot of BFSI clients, right? Which are large enterprises, some large banks. This is something that people usually talk about, but I want to hear from you because you're closer to these organizations and as you work with them. Do you think scalability is an issue for large enterprises? Yes, no? If yes, how do we address that?
You asked about scalability, right? Yeah. I think I would say BFSI industry is starting to prepare for it in India, and many other geographies. It's, I think, probably yet to start, except the few guys. And in terms of goals that they want to achieve, right? It's actually very different. I mean, the goals has been changing for the last 10 years. Initially, 2010s, 25s, it was primarily about big data. Let's start collecting data and everything, right? Without thinking about how to do it, meaning they're just collecting the data in legacy systems somewhere and all. And in the last 10 years, there was a little bit of clarity on how to do it. Okay, I have to have a data lake, I have to have these things, I have to have these things and all. But the success stories are pretty much very minimal at the moment because, these problem statements are for large enterprises. They may say that, okay, I have a ton of data, what can I do with it? What are the things that I have to do with it, right? The goal is, let's say, clean data sets for future users, or data sets for modeling, or data sets for governance. So they can categorize the goals and they need to have a specific path to achieve it, and hence the tools and everything, right? I think to some extent, from a governance standpoint, people have matured because of all the regulations that is coming through either GDPR in Europe or in India, data privacies, like you have to store all transactional data within India, for example. Some financial institutions got fined by it, which means that they got the jolt that is required, right? I think on the compliance front being the goal, there is a little bit of maturity. When it comes to other things, like using the data for future or using the data for modeling, I think it's yet to start. Because modeling is an entirely different problem, and it's an evolutionary problem. So you can start with data pipelines, feature store, and then retraining data sets, and then model is a separate problem on its own, right? I would say some goals, there is a maturity. For some other goals, it's yet to start. Also, the tools are getting matured. I think we probably would be at initial 5 years of 100-year life cycle in terms of data preparation, maturity, tools, and management and everything. I think in the end, they have to understand that they may have a lot of oil, but if they do not have refinery techniques, it's useless. You cannot use the oil as is in your vehicles, right? It has to be refined and create gas out of it. If you're not doing that, no matter how much data that you have, it's pretty useless.
Nice to bring that oil analogy back into the game. Sure. So I feel like when it comes to outcomes, we are short-sighted rather than far-sighted. Yeah. So we need to solve for tomorrow when it comes for outcomes, right? Got it. The next question that I have is for Vipin. So when I heard that Duroflex, someone from Duroflex is coming over, the first thing that came to my mind, oh, this is the same company that I have the mattress from. And probably you also, that's a very strong brand recall, by the way. But the question that I have, and which people also would be interested to know, is how a company like yours is utilizing data and AI. Give us some of the typical use cases that you're exploring. You did touch upon this in the beginning, but apart from that, how are you using analytics, and how are you thinking of delivering winning customer experiences using AI?
Sure. So in a consumer brand which is D2C, the main differentiator between winning and losing is data. So we believe that, and we aspire to be a data-first company. And so, for example, Duroflex is selling mattresses today. Now, we want to be seen as a sleep solutions partner rather than just a mattress seller. So, to change our positioning, we need to exactly capture a lot of data. The advantage that we have is on our mattresses, consumer is spending 8 hours, and there are a lot of devices that are available which can actually capture a lot of vitals of the consumers. And then there are algorithms that we are creating with doctors and all, and medical fraternity, wherein we are trying to design a lot of ML algorithms which can actually predict a lot of things in advance. And also for competitive sports, where resting is a very, very important component, we actually can exactly tell that what are the needs of sportsman, how do we make his performance better. And for regular people also, like if we can predict his health situations, if there is some algorithm which can actually tell you in advance that there is a impending heart attack and all that, right? So that is one. So where we are trying to do using a lot of data, and we have that privilege because we are in the house of the consumer is sleeping, and then we have sold more than 2-3 million mattresses over the last 4-5 years. So that is one. We want to use IoTs and all that to collect all the data and run a lot of algorithms. Second, for our retail consumer, company operated and company owned outlets, we have introduced a footfall tracker which is like embedded, which takes the feed from the security camera and exactly predict the consumer behavior, demography, gender, wise cut, how the consumer has actually moved within the store. So there are a lot of data that we are generating, and then it can exactly tell us like it will help us in better planogramming also, like which it will show the heat map of the store. Then we can exactly know that where to place what product, right? In terms of how much time consumer is spending, what is my conversion, is it like we can do a comparative analysis in the catchment area, the market size is this much, but we are not able to make it up. So we might have a manpower training issue. A lot of insights we can generate out of that. Then also there are use cases like assortment planning, wherein we can place the right product at the right time at the right place. So there are ML algorithms. We are evaluating ML algorithms to exactly for our entire retail business, which is around 980 EBOs plus 50 CoCo stores, which are company-owned stores. We want to run a lot of algorithms to exactly predict so that we have less non-moving stock and we are able to partner with our dealers better, right? And there are a lot of, and there are other use cases like in the factory, we are creating a digital twin for our processes. We are on a data journey. We want to be a data-first company. We are creating a data lake in-house. We have around 30 plus applications from where we are pulling the data. Since AI/ML is a very expensive proposition, so we want to have a proper business use case and start investing. We are investing in 3-4 use cases and will obviously start doing that. As you know, means in generally, people talk a lot about AI/ML. Being from a product company, means where we are selling products, consumer goods, AI/ML mostly, what I've seen the use cases is like anonymous Indian and manual labor. A lot of backend is set up and those guys are churning data day in, day out. So we want to have a proper use case. We just don't want to load and go into the rat race, but we have a dedicated program where we are creating our own data lake, generating credible data. We are partnering with a lot of partners. Since we are a D2C brand, winning with consumer data can help us a lot. And we are taking all this.
That's some really interesting use cases. So if tonight you go and lie down on your bed, it's not just made with foam, coir, it's also made with data. So think about that when you go out to sleep this night. Before I ask the next question, just to see how many of you are paying attention, because I don't want to assume things, how many of you are already in the field of data science, data analytics, AI/ML, these fields? Show of hands. So majority of you. So there are some people who are thinking about switching to this field, right? Any? Yes, no, show of hands. No? That's mind-boggling because you're in this session and you're not thinking about that field. It pays very well, by the way. All right, so my next question is for Gautam, who is in the business of connecting businesses with talent. So my question for you, Gautam, is that we generally see it's very difficult to hire talent in this field, right? So for people who are already in this field, since most of them here, and some of them who want to move to this field, right? What are some of the skill sets that they should focus on? And if you have any idea around certifications, trainings, that's most preferred by businesses when they hire talent?
So I would like to take this question in two parts. First, when you say about skills that are on demand, and you see what clients are looking for as a whole. So I would say cloud is become a mandatory thing. So anything you do, you need to be at least if you're starting out, you should be at least proficient. I would not say proficient, at least be at a basic level with all AWS, Azure, and GCP, all the three, because you don't want to cordon yourself off to just one technology. That is one. And in data science as a whole, Python, just because of the capability that you can deploy real-time solutions, of the data analysis live on your product. So Python and cloud being the major things. And, coming to the training part, yes, getting a Microsoft certificate for Azure or a Google certificate for GCP, yes, adds to your credibility. And then, the controversial part is, with edtech companies that are focusing to, get a lot of people trained in data science and get in, right? So what we are seeing as a recruitment company is a lot of people who are in IT who are either stuck or who want to move up in their career in terms of salary, end up taking up courses with, say, Great Lakes, Upgrad, Insofi, all these folks, and then they end up wanting to move into data science and analytics. But when you see from the customer side of things, people are preferring freshers or people who already have hands-on experience versus people who have gotten just trained, because that's what we have seen with customers that we have worked with. And the second part is some customers are open to looking at these candidates who've gotten trained and they're willing to take them under their wing and train them and grow them. But a common problem that I see with candidates who go for these analytics training is that say the candidate graduated in 2012, until 2018 he has been working in an IT services firm, and then 2018 he does a course in Great Lakes, and then he changes his entire resume. From 2012 he has been working as a data scientist in TCS, and he has done all the projects, whatever you've done during the coursework, he just rattles it across his entire resume. And then from 2018 onwards also he talks about the same thing. The first question is, if somebody is a data scientist from 2012 through 2018, why will he go to an institution to get a certification? First question. Second thing is, there is lack of credibility in the candidate because they end up fudging their resume. The moment you see, so that what it makes is the moment, somebody has done a data science certification, it's a red flag for us to scan through the resume and then, talk to the client. And generally, that's what I see. As a whole, if you ask about trainings, from the companies that, offer the products, like, if he's a GCP certified Google Cloud practitioner, that makes a lot more, business value than somebody who is, certified from a private organization that is not the homegrown product. And the second part is, in terms of technology, cloud first. Without cloud, nobody is on traditional systems anymore. So whether you're doing ML, AI, whatever it is, there are services on cloud that render these things. So cloud first, and when you're starting, probably, you don't want to limit yourself just to GCP or AWS or Azure. You might probably want to take a bite out of each of them so that you keep your career options open. And then as you go, you can probably specialize. So that's how I kind of look at it.
Got it. So just being honest in our resumes, because there is definitely a demand for freshers in the market.
Yes.
And being cloud agnostic or platform agnostic, knowing the basics of technology per se. Got it. From hiring to technical know-how, Sarabjot, this question for you because you provide consultancy services to a lot of organizations, right? So the question is, how important is technical know-how while working with data? So we talked about data, how important data is. But for the people who are working with data, how does it matter? How does that changes the game?
Sure. So there is a myth that exists in the industry today called a citizen data scientist, right? And the assumption is that you don't need technical know-how. Personally, I may be biased, but I believe that technical know-how is still very important. If you want to build AI, the kind of work that we do where we develop intellectual property that gets embedded into people's platforms that actually, we're actually building that AI algorithm for them or pipeline for them. There you can't do it as a citizen data scientist. It's as simple as that. You can't build a car if you're not an engineer. You can drive a car. And so, on the other hand, there's definitely some great tools that are out there. Look at Dataiku, for example, that is a low-code, no-code type environment. I won't mention some of the cloud providers here that also have some good low-code, no-code opportunities there. And so there are certain things that can be done, whether it's in data engineering or data science, without knowing coding. But to me, if you really want to solve problems, coding is essential. Now, when we talk about technology, what are we referring to also, right? I mean, a data technologist, if we want to call it that, is somebody who needs to be a good statistician as well. And so if you don't understand data, you don't understand how to interpret the numbers that are coming out of these low-code, no-code systems, you're going to make mistakes. And I think this is one of the biggest dangers for industry. We've been through it before. At least with my gray hair, I've seen the AI winter in the past. And I think we are at risk of going into the same situation because we have a lot of people who are using libraries without understanding those libraries. We have a plethora of papers that actually provide open source code, and people are using it blindly. They don't necessarily understand the maths behind it. And that is a big fear that I have, is that the businesses are going to assume that AI doesn't work, whereas AI definitely has a role to play in business. And so technical capability, I think, is very important, not to minimize the fact that domain is also very, very important in that sense, right? So if you can bring people that have deep domain knowledge and give them the technical know-how, I think that's the magic formula that you need here.
So if data is the oil, the tools are McLaren, you need a Lewis Hamilton to really drive the car.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my next question is for Rupesh from Niveus. So we work very closely, so Niveus is a Google Cloud partner, and you work with a lot of implementations on customers when they're implementing their data strategy or their cloud platforms. Generally, it is said that while IT has insights into data, they don't really have insights into the business needs and hence is not able to connect the two. How true is this based on your experience?
Yeah, excellent question. So this is something that we kind of encounter day in, day out, right? Because we are working on one side with the IT teams and we are also working with the business teams. I mean, there is kind of a different pattern here, right? When you look at enterprises, large organizations, when we talk to IT teams, right? So what is their priorities, right? Their priorities, what is kind of how they drive their day-in responsibilities is to kind of maintain the systems and the data, right? And when we talk to the business teams, it's all about use cases, it's all about business value, how to drive revenue, how to reduce cost, right? So there are conflicting priorities, right, that we see especially in enterprises. And so the best way out is to kind of, and the direction is going there. What we are seeing is the business and IT coming together to define a business value use case, right? Saying that, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to kind of cross-sell, upsell a particular product or a service, and this is the data that I want about the customer, right? And the IT kind of collaborates. So the intent is there, it's just the clashing priorities and sometimes the ambiguity in terms of what use case are we trying to solve, right? So on the enterprise side, we also are seeing that there are kind of two strategies that at least I have seen in terms of interacting with the folks there. is one is like you kind of give access to the data to the business teams as well, right? It can be in the, not in the raw form, but in a kind of a business understandable form. And they are able to explore, analyze, and then kind of define their use cases better, right? So this is one approach which kind of works. It requires a little bit of kind of understanding of the data and kind of how to play around with the data, but that is the only technical part that is there, right? And some business teams actually have analysts around this to explore and kind of define the use case better and then kind of give it to the experts, right? Maybe on the IT side, or kind of have the data scientists look at it. There is also another approach in terms of having a digital organization, right? We are seeing kind of a digital organization as a separate organization being set up in enterprises where they are kind of the bridge between IT and business, right? So they are kind of, they understand both aspects of it, how to get the data in the proper place in the IT kind of data warehouse, data lakes, and then how to talk to business in terms of what is the value of these use cases, right? So the digital officers and their organizations are driving this and kind of trying to kind of close out on this disconnect. On the digital native side, we are seeing a different trend, right? There it is like the data is kind of, the use case is already defined. The data is accessible. The founders and their teams are, they actually know what to do about that data, right? So they define saying that this is a use case and this is how I will capture the data in the first place, right? Be it in a mobile app or maybe some data that they are kind of taking it in the background, right? So the use case is defined, they are able to execute it faster because they are first a lean organization and the kind of hierarchies and all those things don't exist. So in digital natives, we are seeing people kind of defining ways to look at anomalies in terms of customer behavior, in terms of predicting who can be a power user in my mobile app. All those use cases are being quickly rolled out. So the different pattern for different segment of customers.
But really starts with looking at end in the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
I had one more question, but given that we only have 4 minutes, I think it would be wise to ask people who spent like last 40 minutes here to take their questions. So if any of you has a question, put your hand up and we can get the mic.